Sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to tonight's candidate forum, Ward 12. Whoop. My name is Rachel. I am the director at Longfellow Community Council that represents Greater Longfellow. If any of you live in Longfellow, come on out and talk to me. But I'm going to pass it over to the people who know all the things to do all the wonderfulness tonight. Kitty Weston is in charge.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening and welcome to the Minnesota Ward 9 City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Kitty Weston and I am a member of the League of Women Voters Minneapolis, but not a resident of Ward 9. I'm pleased to be moderating the forum this evening. The League of Women Voters Minneapolis is a volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters regardless of political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by IATA Leads, Community Power Men, Longfellow Community Council, Make Voting a Tradition, NACDI, and the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. The views expressed are those of the candidates and not those of the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters or its co-sponsors endorse candidates or a political party. We are holding this forum for voters to hear the candidates and to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience at Powderhorn Recreation Center and is being live streamed to YouTube with the link available at lwvmpls.org. Thank you to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn in the room and that no signs or literature be distributed during this event. Please remain quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We also would ask you to hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your question. Finally, please silence all your electronic devices. Ward 7, located in central Minneapolis, is an informed and engaged community of changemakers, artists, and activists. It has thriving small business corridors and faith communities. It is one of the most densely populated wards, as well as one of the most diverse. It has the city's largest urban American Indian population, the largest African community, and a progressive LGBTQ community. It includes the neighborhoods of Central, Corcoran, East Phillips, Howe, Longfellow, and Powderhorn Park. Two candidates are running for Ward 9 City Council seat. The candidates were invited to the forum and both have agreed to participate this evening. As a reminder, Minneapolis local elections have ranked choice voting instead of primaries. Even though we have two candidates for Ward 9, ballots will be formatted as ranked choice ballots in the event you want to write in a candidate. Let me introduce you in alphabetical order to the candidates, Jason Chavez and Daniel Orban. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer each question and 1 minute to make a closing statement. The timekeepers will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds left and a stop card when time is up. We ask that the candidates finish their sentences and stop at that point. We expect this forum to last 1 hour. Questions from community members have been submitted in advance. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience, and a volunteer will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators and then to the moderator. We ask that the questions be clear and pertinent to the issues at hand and made in the form of a question, not a statement. Questions must be directed to both candidates. Questions that are hostile or of a personal nature will not be asked. We may consolidate questions of the same general topic, so please understand if your question is worded differently. All questions submitted are property of League of Women Voters Minneapolis. We will be asking questions about policing, public safety, housing, neighborhood support and welfare, climate and environmental equity and action plans, city government, and general questions. To get as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. Since there is never enough time to cover all the issues, if you feel your question was not addressed, please contact the candidates directly after the forum. I'm guessing they would be willing to have a chat with you then. Okay, so for the candidates' opening statement, we ask that they address this question. Why are you running for Ward 9 City Council seat, and what are your qualifications? You will each have 2 minutes to respond. We will start alphabetically by last name. So, candidate Chavez.
Can you all hear me? Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Jason Chavez. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I have the honor and privilege of representing Ward 9 on the Minneapolis City Council. I am currently the DFL and Labor endorsed candidate. I want to begin by thanking the League of Minnesota Women Voters for hosting this debate tonight, for the work you all did to engage residents. I saw a lot of flyers, and I saw people talking to different neighbors in Ward 9, making sure that people can be here today. Before joining the City Council, I actually worked at the Minnesota House of Representatives, working first on the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Reform Committee under Representative Carlos Mariani, passing the Police Accountability Act of 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. And then I transitioned into working on the Workforce and Business Development Committee during the height of the pandemic, making sure that we could help rebuild parts of Lake Street and make sure that our workers were being protected at the beginning of the height of the pandemic under Representative Mahmoud Noor, who represents part of Minneapolis. And I'm currently running for re-election because I think we have a lot more left to do in city government. I believe in making sure that our city government, in Ward 9 in particular, is a government that is community-led and community-centered. Everything I do isn't for me, it's for the people of Ward 9. I center Ward 9 in everything that I do. I think there's more we can do to address our homelessness crisis, to make sure that we can provide dignified and safe housing for all our neighbors, making sure that we can bring community into the conversations of transportation safety and community safety, and making sure that we can build an economic development program that actually serves our residents in Minneapolis. So I'm just excited to be here with all of you today and just wanted to say hello.
Thank you. Candidate Orban.
Hi, my name is Dan Orban. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, League of Women Voters, for the opportunity and the sponsors. 11 years ago, in this place, I married my wife, Powderhorn Park. We actually had a Paso Doble dance in the middle of this room. It was really fun. And you know, at the time, we didn't even have a car, so we rode away on bikes, into Ventura Village. 6 months later, we bought a house in the East Phillips neighborhood to raise our kids in one of the most culturally diverse neighborhoods in Minneapolis. Our goal for our kids was for them to be part of the inner city culture and also be cultural ambassadors for the area, and so that they could grow up and be in between cultures, as my wife and I had grown up. This is still our goal. Now I am an educator working for the inner city public and private schools. Teaching technology in those schools. As a teacher, I am interested in wanting everyone to thrive, and I also, therefore, when I see suffering, I feel like I need to stand up, and that's actually the reason I'm running. I'm seeing a lot of suffering in our neighborhoods, especially in terms of where the encampments are happening. We had one in the back of our backyard for all summer. The kids haven't been able to play outside. There's been a lot of dangerous activity happening back there. That's one thing I am specifically interested in helping trying to solve, not just for the residents, but also for the people in our the people who also live in tents, who actually are suffering as well. But yeah, I'm interested in helping renters, homeowners, employers, and even those living in tents. So let's do good things together. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the questions from the community. Candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to answer these questions. We will begin with candidate Chavez and then with candidate Orban for the first question. Number 1, policing and public safety. The council has limited authority related to Minneapolis Police Department under our city charter. In what ways will you improve accountability or advance reforms within MPD given the council's limitations?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. Ward 9 is actually the place where the police murdered George Floyd, and it's a place that has a lot of trauma and pain from our police department. That's why we're under 2 consent decrees right now, or going to be under 2 consent decrees. The limited power that we have on the council is that we have a CCPO ordinance, it's the Community Commission on Police Oversight Ordinance. And it's an ordinance that came before the council that I was able to successfully amend because I did not think it was at its best. So one of the things I was able to do is ensure that Ward 9 had representation on the commission. It didn't guarantee that our residents that have been killed by police or hurt by our police department were not going to have a seat at the table. I also made an amendment to bypass the background check. Ward 9 has a lot of immigrants, people that are undocumented, that we're not going to be able to be a part of this commission if we didn't bypass the FBI background check. And now folks do have the ability to be a part of this commission. I also made sure that there was some substantial changes to make sure that there was more accountability of the police chief in this commission. So that's one of the things and one of the tools we have in the police oversight functions in this council. Moving forward, the council approves the police union contract, and we also have oversight functions in our audit department. I want to make sure that we audit our coaching mechanisms in the city of Minneapolis. Oftentimes what we do in the city is coach police officers, and what happens is instead of, disciplining or holding police officers accountable, we coach them, we give a slap on the wrist, and oftentimes people continue to do acts of police brutality because they aren't actually being disciplined. So those are some of the things I want to change and evaluate with our oversight, and also make sure that any police union contract actually has some teeth, which our last one didn't.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Candidate Orban?
Can you repeat the question real fast?
Yes. The council has limited authority related to MPD under our city charter. In what ways will you improve accountability or advance reforms within the police department, given the council's limitations?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very challenging question in our ward, especially with what happened recently in the last 3 years with police accountability. I actually am very encouraged by what's going on in the police department right now. I like what I see in terms of the people who are in that office. I think they are doing a good job of actually getting the right people there who actually want to be there, and giving them opportunity to choose the place that they actually want to go. I do think that, we do need the accountability and transparency that is there, including training and the other things that actually are there. But that's also we need to be able to. We just need to recruit a lot of people, and we need to recruit good people, and that's actually kind of a challenge, especially as people retire, and people need to actually task the force to meet the city charter, which is like a certain number of people, and we're down 200, hundreds of people right now, and not being able to actually meet the needs that actually are there. So I think, having background checks, accountability, a lot of the stuff that Jason says sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue with you, Candidate Orban. Next question. Where do you now think the 3rd Precinct police station should be built? Why and when?
That's a great question, and that's like the question of the day that actually everyone's working on right now. So I do believe that the 3rd Precinct needs to be present in the 3rd Precinct. I believe it should be somewhere in a location that is accessible to all. I think that in the past there has been a survey that was done that actually 66% of the residents said that they'd like it in the old location. Now that's complicated as well, so I am not against moving it to another location for safety purposes as well. But it does need to be in the neighborhood, and it does are in the community of the 3rd precinct, which right now, if it's somewhere else like downtown, it's not going to get people, it's not going to be close enough to actually meet the needs of the community. I also think that in terms of being able to, the current place it's at right now is not acceptable. We need to actually meet the needs of the police officers that are there so that they actually have some humane practices as well. If there's like not the things that people need, they're gonna also not feel supported, which is important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Same question, Candidate Chavez.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Of course. Where do you now think the 3rd Precinct Police Station should be built? Why and when?
Yeah, no, thank you. I just want to begin by saying that right now in our city, there is mistrust within our Minneapolis Police Department and the residents here in Minneapolis, and that is something that we need to take very seriously and address. And whatever plan we move forward with needs to make sure that there is transparent community engagement and a plan to ensure that the police department is being reformed. I personally do not support putting it back at Lake and Minnehaha. I know that many officers in the police department do not also support putting it back at Lake Minnehaha. I don't think that would be the best use of our taxpayer dollars. I want to make sure that whatever building is built is not militarized, that it's not a fortress, and making sure that it is a community safety center that encompasses many different assets. Yes, it can be the Minneapolis Police Department, but it should also encompass our behavioral crisis response team. It should also encompass the Office of Community Safety, a place where our violence interrupters and folks that have alternative responses can also be in this building to make sure that we are sending the right response to the right location. I also know that I am going to be a steward of our taxpayer dollars, and right now, the mayor has asked us to put it at 26 in Minnehaha with no plan, without knowing how much it's actually going to cost. And one ask that I have is show us your plan. How much is it going to cost? What are you going to do? What is piloting this comprehensive public safety center on that location going to look like? And that's an action I'm going to be bringing forward with one of my colleagues on the council to make sure that I'm being a steward of our public safety dollars and our taxpayer dollars. But I believe in a comprehensive public safety center in the 3rd precinct, and it should be centralized.
Thank you very much. Moving on to housing. So I'm going to have you go first again, Candidate Chavez. As a city council member, what specific strategies do you support or propose for our diverse, unsheltered population? How would you suggest we address encampments?
Yeah, I'll begin by our response to encampments. I think the city's current approach to homelessness and approach to encampments is inhumane. It is just wrong that people are not being provided with storage. We cannot send hundreds of police officers to evict an encampment. There has to be a better way. And we cannot just displace people without having a plan of where they're going to go and what housing opportunities they're going to have. One of the things I'm doing on the council right now is proposing a humane encampment response policy, one that is centered on public health and public safety, one that ensures that people have belongings to store their stuff, and one that is going to make sure that people have a place to go. That is important to my office to make sure that we are treating people with dignity and respect, and that is not happening. And at the same time, we need to make sure that residents near encampments can also feel safe, because that's also important to me. In regards to addressing and helping solve part of this crisis that we're on, we have to do different approaches. We do have to build that public housing that's income-based, tied to people's individual income, because we know that's the best way to keep someone in their home. We need to create tiny villages across our city. One thing I just recently did was move $1 million in emergency funding with my colleague, Councilman Koski, so Vivo can apply to $10 million in state funding so we can create one in South Minneapolis. And what I hope that that site could look like is being tailored to our African American and Native communities, who are the communities that we need to be able to support in this process.
Thank you. Candidate Orban.
Yes, thank you very much. So this is one of the primary reasons I'm running for office right now, is because of the encampments. I we call them encampments because people have tents in there, but really they are also called open air drug scenes, which one of the main problems that actually exists in these open air drug scenes is actually the drug activity. A lot of people are actually being exploited there they're being exploited for drugs, they're being exploited for trafficking. There's a lot of crime that's going on, and it comes a lot down to addiction. The people that actually are running these encampments aren't people from the city. It's not social workers. It's drug lords, unfortunately, which actually causes major issues. And so what we actually need to do is actually have places that we can break up these open air drug scenes and move people into sheltered housing, which would, so in other words, we shelter first, which means actually working with the state and the county to create more shelters. These shelters also will provide and incentivize treatment so that people actually can get the needs that they need met, and from there meet their more long-term goals based on what other things they might have, including mental illness. So, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Orban, I'm going to ask you this next question. How would you, as a city council member, increase the availability of affordable housing? Would you support rent control? What other options would you suggest? Yes.
I apologize. I thought I'm used to you going first. Sorry. Okay. Rent control and housing. Yes. What do I suggest for public housing and not public housing, but affordable housing? Yes. So I think diversity in housing is very important. So I think the city's actually done a pretty good job at this, is actually creating more housing, more multi-family housing, different zoning laws that might actually be helpful for that, or policies that would increase the amount of housing. Not only that, I also think that we should increase the incentives and help in encouraging home ownership. I think that's the best form of rent control. You know, I've owned my house for 10 years, and it's not fluctuated with the market. I think we should hope and incentivize that, and also help people who actually have trouble buying houses, because that also includes creating equity within your family. So things that will actually move on to your children. In terms of rent control, I don't support it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think it hurts the people who you would actually you have it for. It does not incentivize keeping housing in good condition. It does not allow people to, or what it does is it says the house owner would hope to get people out so that you wouldn't have to be there and pay more later. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. How would you, as a city council member, increase the availability of affordable housing? Would you support rent control? What other options would you suggest?
Thank you for the question. That's something that's really important to Ward 9 residents. 70% of people voted in favor of authorizing the city council to establish a rent stabilization policy in Ward 9 in 2021. The majority of Ward 9 residents believe in establishing a rent stabilization policy. It is something that I truly believe needs to happen. It's not the only thing. It's one of the tools we have for anti-displacement measures. When we have people being displaced from their homes, when we have people that cannot feed their families, pay for food on their table, and have a roof over their head, that is just morally wrong. And that is why I support rent stabilization. At the same time, we also need to build more deeply affordable housing. This year, we put $16.8 million into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And while that is a good start, it is not enough. And one of the things I want to do in the council is radically transform that fund. It is unacceptable that the majority of those dollars are not going to 30% AMI, income-based housing, that is going to keep people that we represent, that I represent in Ward 9 in their home. And that is something that I am tackling right now to make sure that those dollars are actually going to housing that is affordable. I also believe in the public housing levy and restoring that, making sure that we can build more public housing in the city of Minneapolis, and also supportive of increasing our 4D program to incentivize property developers to actually create more deeply affordable housing. And at the same time, while housing development is important, we need to make sure that we're protecting our renters in this city. 50% of Ward 9 residents are renters, and they also deserve to be protected.
Thank you. Moving on to the next topic, neighborhood support and welfare. Candidate Chavez, our homeowner taxes and special assessments continue to rise. How do you propose helping homeowners meet these costs so they can afford to keep their homes?
Thank you for that question. One thing the city council needs to do, and something that I'm hoping to get accomplished this budget, is improve our oversight functions. The first year I was in office, we focused solely on the executive branch, which is the mayor's side of the government structure, instead of focusing on the council's power of oversight. So right now we're struggling with our oversight functions after.
And of course, I'd be interested in the question if I was a homeowner. But I need to actually look into where those tax dollars are going and whether we can move that up to a different level that doesn't have to actually be the homeowner to meet the, or doesn't have to actually be in the homeowner taxes. But I would also say what we actually need to do is start working on incentivizing, increasing business in the area, small business. Go from it from an economic perspective where actually we can improve upon that, especially the people that are actually struggling with this, where they do need help in this area. We need to also work them towards finding more high-paying jobs in the area as well to be able to afford those taxes if they are absolutely needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Orbat, next question. As the businesses and properties along Lake Street struggle to transition out of the pandemic, civil unrest, damage, and an economic recession, what are 3 things you would champion as a city council member to help this vital commercial corridor recover and thrive in the future?
Yes, thank you. A couple things that are 3 things that actually would help revitalize the Lake Street corridor. First of all, it's been very difficult for people in that area, especially with the amount of crime that has ensued over the last 3 years. Companies or businesses, small businesses, sometimes people will just go in and steal things and take them. The companies, the small businesses can't recoup that cost, and they're going to leave and they're going to move. So public safety is probably number 1 in fixing that. Number 2 is actually it does hurt small businesses when you see abandoned buildings and lots and tents that would actually be beside them. It actually does hurt those buildings and those businesses. Third, I think being able to, third, I think in some sense we also need parking in those areas. Right now we're not a dense neighborhood, and as density increases, then we can rely more on public transit and biking. But for now, those businesses actually rely on good, reliable parking that you can actually sit and put your car out there so that you can actually go in there. If people can't park, they're not going to be able to buy something. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Yeah, thank you for the question. This past year on the City Council, we've invested more than $3 million to help rebuild Lake Street. And my office also led an initiative to increase programming on BTAP services for free consulting services for folks on 30th in Chicago, East Lake Street, Cedar Avenue, places where our small businesses, majority immigrant and people of color are at, making sure that we can support them. And now we need to do a lot more than just that to make sure that our cultural corridors like Lake Street are being protected and served. One thing I'm really focused on this year is our ownership and opportunity fund, making sure that we can increase that to a level that is supporting our East Lake Street corridor, our 38th Street corridor, that are also important here in Ward 9. We have two beautiful cultural districts that we need to make sure we're supporting our African American, our Latinx, our immigrant neighbors here in Ward 9 as we rebuild into a better future. Another thing that I want to continue investing on and figure out how we can improve it, and not just on Lake Street, I want to see this on Bloomington Avenue, is our facade grants, making sure we can change our storefronts, make sure that we can make our stores a beautiful and welcoming place, and supporting our small business owners in doing so. And then one thing that I want to bring to Lake Street, to 38th Street, to our cultural districts is the DID program. So right now, downtown gets all the assets in the world. They get the services of Pam and Brune services. They get people that are directing folks in downtown. I want that on Lake Street, because Lake Street is worth it, and Lake Street deserves the same assets that downtown gets.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez, how will you be engaged in our community? In other words, what are your plans to partner with community organizations, including neighborhood associations, communicate with constituents about issues at City Hall and within the ward, be accessible and available for residents to connect with you and keep up with what residents are thinking and feeling about issues?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. Thank you so much. I think that one of my goals is to diversify our neighborhood organizations. I think that our neighborhood orgs do a lot of great work, and they also should reflect the people that live in Ward 9 based on how they interact with our community. I also support increasing base funding for our neighborhood associations so they can actually do the work that they're doing in our neighborhoods. In regards to my communication, I send bi-weekly newsletters, making sure that my residents know what I voted for, what I voted against, and my reasonings why. I'm not always going to agree with all of you in this room, but I will always tell you why I voted a certain way, and that is what, at a minimum, what you deserve. I also host regular office hours, and I bring folks from the county, the state, federal government, oftentimes folks from the Met Council, because while I may be able to solve every single issue that you have, I do have the power to bring people to a table so your voices can be heard. And that is something I like to do in my office hours. And I also like to have public engagement events, whether it's been my community safety town halls to issues about the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm Project. My commitment is to always be engaged. I also like to door knock whenever I have events. I can't get to every single door, but I like to door knock on my official capacity because I like to hear what residents are thinking in different languages as well, because our ward, majority of people actually don't speak just one language, and it's important to communicate in different languages, which is why I'm proud to speak Spanish.
Thank you. Candidate Orban?
Yes, Ward 9 is actually very diverse, and the culture is just amazing. I love it. I am looking forward to, if elected, to actually engage in face-to-face meetings with many of the people in the neighborhood. Whether they voted for me or not, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in everyone who lives in the ward, everyone whose desires are needed, what their wants are. I also like to disagree with people, so, but hopefully they do too. And that's kind of what we need, is actually a more open dialogue these days on things that we may not always see eye to eye on. But I also think that the international groups that are around here, I agree, we do need some language services so that we can actually communicate with them. And I also think that we should have an opportunity to meet with the neighborhood organizations and get very involved with them. There's kind of like, it's kind of nice to actually have kind of a hierarchy there where we could actually meet with the neighborhood organizations who can meet with the people in the neighborhood and have some communication there. And I also love the idea of organizing events and being able to do monthly meet and greets and being able to also have great email communications and newsletters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to climate and environmental equity and action plans. This question was submitted by Community Power. We're going to start with you, Candidate Orban. Funding for climate action. Minneapolis' current funding for equitable climate action in the city is about $2 to $3 million annually, coming from what's called the franchise fee. Excel and CenterPoint utility customers in Minneapolis pay this as a percentage of our total utility bills. What scale of dedicated funding do you, as a city council member, believe is needed to meet Minneapolis's climate goals in an equitable way, and where would you propose this funding should come from?
Yeah, so the current funding options will probably not meet the goals of the equity climate approach that's actually submitted. I think it actually is very ambitious. In that case, actually, you would need a lot more funding for that, and that would also mean that you would need to find a funding source for that. That may come from being able to get rid of some other things that aren't actually solving a problem, and then add the funding there. I do also think we have a great opportunity with our purpose in helping improve the environment. I would say that that's our cultural responsibility, is actually to do good for what's out there. I like options that are there, and I think it's actually an opportunity to innovate. I think more money needs to be put into research to actually make some of these technologies more viable that would actually improve the existing technologies and also create better technologies than exist today, more reliable and clean energy at the same time. As a scientist myself, I think that is actually something worth investing in and doing a good job, just because we're made to keep this world, make this world better. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Repeat the question again?
Yes, I can. Minneapolis' current funding for equitable climate action in the city is about $2 to $3 million annually, coming from what's called the franchise fee. Excel and CenterPoint and utility customers in Minneapolis pay this as a percentage of our total utility bills. What scale of dedicated funding do you, as a city council member, believe is needed to meet the Minneapolis climate goals in an equitable way, and where would you propose this funding should come from?
Yeah, thank you for that incredible question. We are in a climate crisis, and it's up for municipal governments, the county, the state, and federal government to step up. It's the young people of this world that are going to be here taking on the impacts that we as decision makers make if we don't take this crisis seriously. One of the things that I want to do and will be doing and will support in this upcoming budget is making sure that there is $10 million from our franchise fee dedicated to meeting these climate goals. And these goals should be starting in the south side green zone, in the north side green zone. Ward 9 encompasses that south side green zone. These are areas in Minneapolis that have been polluted for too long. It encompasses areas that have been disinvested from housing, from including environmental injustice to severe impacts of weather. And this funding should help weatherize our homes. We should be able to help make sure that these installations of these homes are affordable for our community members. And it should start here in the Southside Green Zone. So to answer the question, it's going to come from the franchise fee, and it should be $10 million, and we should be ramping up from that to meet our goals.
Thank you.
And then, did I answer everything? I don't think I did, but it's okay.
I have another question for you that was going to help you answer. I'd like to ask you specifically to address pollution in Ward 9.
Yeah, we have bituminous roadways, we have Smith foundries. There is work that needs to happen at the state level to make sure that we can hold these polluters accountable. For the past few years, we've had the city of Minneapolis trying to build the Hiawatha campus expansion project in our backyard, where we've had folks from the Little Earth community, our indigenous neighbors, fighting back for their sovereignty. I'm a supporter of the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm project that will literally transform the lives of our residents here in Ward 9. I'm talking about building deeply affordable housing, small businesses, job opportunities for our neighbors right here in our backyard, and fresh food for people that live in this area. And that's going to help address that. But right now, we also need to make sure that we meet that goal of November 8th to make sure that the Roof Depot project turns into the East Phillips Indoor Urban Farm project. And we also can't forget about bituminous roadways and Smith foundries that are adding more pollution and are increasing asthma and cancer and heart disease in our ward, while also making sure that we're doing everything that we can to implement with funding this climate equity plan that I was proud to vote in favor of.
Thank you. Candidate Orban,
Yeah, so
specifically address pollution, please.
what was that?
Specifically address pollution.
Okay, yeah. All right, so I live in East Phillips neighborhood. I'm experiencing the pollution that actually exists there. I mean, it doesn't stay in East Phillips neighborhood, but that's kind of the center of it. And I go by these places that actually have the pollution. I smell it, I feel it. It doesn't feel good. And I would say I actually love the fact that there's the Little Orphendorf farm that you put together. So thank you for doing that. I think actually it's that you partnered with, and I actually think it's a really good thing to be able to have the community come together and build these affordable houses, the farm indoors, supply all the needs through needs and energy through solar. And I think it's actually a good opportunity to bring the community together. That's really what we need to do. I hope there's more opportunities with some of these other polluting areas that we can actually, so I support what actually is going on right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to talking about city government. Candidate Orban, do you think Minneapolis residents are aware or know about all the resources available to them through the city? If no, what would you recommend as a city council member?
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not saying yeah. I'm saying, yeah, that's a hard problem. No, we don't know about that. And I think we do need to make that change. As a city council member, I think the first thing is education. We need to have some way to actually get organized in a way of where the resources are, what we need to do, what we need to hand out. Do we need to communicate this online? Do we need to communicate it through people, through the neighborhood associations? Do we... that, and we also need some kind of coordination between the services so that, and maybe a point person too, that you can ask, hey, what do I do here? I mean, I think 311 actually does a pretty good job of actually connecting you to some resources, but sometimes it's, the resources are kind of scattered, maybe combining them together to be able to have a common place that, or someone maybe in a role that would actually say, oh, here, talk to this person, this person, this person first, or here's the services that are available. I think in general, education would be a good thing to propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I also will agree, I don't think that we are doing enough to make sure that the things we are doing is getting out there, which is why I tend to door knock a lot on my official side, because I like to hear what our residents are currently saying, what they want to see changed in our current government. One of the things I'm hearing in regards to this is changing our oversight functions. What power does the council have in this new government structure to make sure we are overseeing the administration's work and making sure that the programs are effective, and then what can we do to make sure that our oversight functions and legislative functions are actually working, so people like yourselves, people that I represent, can actually make changes in city government and propose things that are actually going to change the life of our residents. I need to make sure that our information is actually more accessible. I think that we aren't at our best when we can't communicate with people in different languages and can't communicate with people in a way that they understand things. And I also think that we need to make changes in our budget process to make sure that people actually can feel change in our government. One thing that I really want to see change is a participatory budgeting process where we can allocate specific amount of dollars from our city government so community members can actually decide how to use those dollars. I'm not the best person to always decide how that money is going to be used. The people I represent know how to do that a lot better, and I think that can radically transform how we do things in government, and would love to take action on that.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to some general questions now, and we're going to start with you, Candidate Chavez. Let's see. What resources do you, as city council members, support and advocate for low-income families and children?
Yeah, I think this goes back. Rent stabilization is a policy that I strongly support. No person should ever have to go homeless without food on the table, without a roof over their head, because they cannot pay their rent. And it is something that is needed today. It was needed yesterday. It's a policy that needs to be enacted already. In regards to specific family things, I support increasing funding for our school-based clinics so people can actually go see their doctor. I support our Stable Homes and Stable Schools program to make sure that people that are homeless, young kids that cannot go to school, have a place to sleep at night. It is programming that is effective, that works, and needs to be expanded across the city into more schools so no kid can ever go without a roof over their head. And it is something that I strongly support. And I also support more funding for our after-school youth programs. And there was folks from North Minneapolis, here in South Minneapolis, that were able to access more after-school programming because of the amendment I made. And it meant that kids can actually, do things that are fun, where they can learn and where they could spend time in school instead of going out and doing things that wouldn't be good for our neighborhoods. So I think those programs are things that we should be proud of and continue to support, and also establish new programs to address this as well.
Thank you. Candidate Orban?
Yes, can you repeat the question?
What resources do you, as City Council members, support and advocate for low-income families and children?
How to help families and children?
Excuse me?
How to help families and children?
What resources do you see as a City Council member? What resources they're needed to help families and children?
Okay, great. Okay. Yes, so I have a family and 2 children. I enjoy them very much, and I want the best for them, as with many people in the ward, actually. So I see, one thing actually is this: our ward's very culturally diverse, a lot of different ideologies in there, a lot of different people and backgrounds. I would support culturally relevant organizations. This includes, maybe like Native organizations or also faith-based organizations, partnerships with them in the city if possible. So that would mean, hey, these are people who actually support family values. Here's where you are in what you are looking for. Here, reach out to this person. They will help you actually connect you in the correct place to actually support that. I also agree with being able to work in the schools. As someone who works in the schools himself, I've seen a lot of it's like a microcosm of what happens in the city as well. Kids actually struggle based on how their parents are doing. They are struggling, and we actually do need to provide family resources for those schools, including being able to just provide ways that they can actually succeed. Some people aren't even sleeping, and they need food too. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Orban, as a council member, what, if anything, would you propose that Minneapolis do to improve the relationship between rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft and their drivers? What are your thoughts about expanding a public option like Metro Transit Micro, which is currently operating in North Minneapolis?
Okay, yeah. In terms of, I'm a big proponent of public transportation. I do also like the market for ride shares and being able to do that. I don't think necessarily the city should be interacting with the markets themselves. I think actually that could be a little bit more than what the city actually should be doing. I do believe that there should be some support for those rideshare programs in terms of, however the city can help. But I don't think actually specifying wages is necessarily the right thing to do. For the government. But in any case, I do support public transportation, and I think that micro transportation sounds like a good opportunity as well. That would be actually city and county endorsed. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Can you repeat the question, please?
As a city council member, what, if anything, would you propose that Minneapolis do to improve the relationship between rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft and their drivers? What are your thoughts about expanding a public option like Metro Transit Micro, which is currently operating in North Minneapolis?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'm a big proponent for expanding public transportation in the city of Minneapolis and would support that expansion of the micro for Metro Transit. When it comes to Uber and Lyft drivers, Ward 9 residents, like I mentioned earlier, one of the most diverse, they are the most diverse in the city of Minneapolis. I proudly represent a big Muslim and East African community, many of which are drivers for Uber and Lyft. And for the longest time, they've been paid below minimum wage, have had many unsafe circumstances while they're driving. And at the same time, we need to make sure that we can protect riders as well. I led the city council in making sure that we can establish a minimum wage for our Uber and Lyft drivers. That ordinance was vetoed. And it's something that I'm bringing back up to the council to, one, establish a minimum wage, and two, find a common ground and compromise on the workers' rights and protections for both riders and drivers. And it is something I'm working with all city council members. I've been having meetings to figure out what's a policy that we can all move on together and a policy that we can find the benefit of making sure that our riders and drivers can be safe. In regards to other transportation plans, I passed this legislative directive to explore a relationship with Metro Transit to make sure that we can provide dollar bus rides for people that are low income. And it's something that I'm working really hard to establish the city to become a partner. And then after that, establishing fare free pilot programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for one last question, and we are running short of time, so this is going to be a lightning round question. So if you could try to keep this to about 30 seconds, that would be good. We're going to start with you, Candidate Chavez. What do you think are the most important challenges faced by Minneapolis and why? What would you do to address these challenges? 30 seconds, huh?
I would say one of the biggest ones is community safety. We need to make sure that our residents can feel safe in the city of Minneapolis. And part of that is making sure that we can establish what we have in downtown with a DID program in all our cultural districts in Ward 9 that includes 38th Street and East Lake Street, making sure that we can have community safety efforts, de-escalation, that cleaning services, and making sure that we can actually make sure our residents are safe. The other part is making sure we can actually build housing for everyone and making sure that we can treat our neighbors with dignity and respect that are homeless.
Thank you. Candidate Orban.
Hi, yeah, I think that we should definitely look into public safety as number one, support police officers, but also partnerships with other organizations that would actually maybe even exist within the precinct. Also adding community to that, and then removing the open drug scenes, and also towards treatment and shelters, and then finally being able to add more affordable housing in various methods. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to have closing statements, and you will have 1 minute for your closing statement. Candidate Orban?
Yes. Thank you very much for the organizers, and thank you, Councilmember Chavez, for the discussion and for serving. The whole world is looking at Ward 9 for answers. They ask, how can we overcome evil with good? Is it possible to even solve reconciliation? Our current message of Word involves many things, but it's not that. Let's write our own narrative, the one that shows victory through reconciliation. We don't need to listen to lies that say people cannot overcome addiction or forgive each other. Instead, let's embrace gratitude and encouragement. We need to work together to do hard things. That's primary and key. And we need everyone to participate, even those living in tents, which means that we need to get them the help that's needed. Let's show the world how to overcome evil with good. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Chavez.
Thank you. I'll keep mine very short. I just want to thank the organizers for hosting this debate. I want to thank you, Dan, for being here. I look forward to actually setting up some time. We're going to meet after this debate, probably sometime. And then I want to thank you all for being here. I've had the honor and privilege for almost 2 years of representing Ward 9 on the Minneapolis City Council. And I'm really excited to represent Longfellow, the new part of Ward 9. I've been door knocking there, hearing a lot of the issues that our neighbors care about in those 2 new precincts in the Longfellow neighborhood, and very excited to continue meeting new neighbors. I think that we need to, one thing that I really look forward to once I get hopefully reelected is restoring human dignity in city government. I think we can truly transform the way we treat people in our city and also go back to the basics. I think we haven't really been focusing on basic city services, and it's something that I really want to change going forward after this election. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On behalf of all the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for Ward 7 City Council for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve our community. We hope the forum has helped voters make an informed decision. Many thanks to MCN6 for recording this forum and to Powderhorn Recreation Center for providing space. The studio and video recordings of this forum will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website, lwvmpls.org. Recordings may not be edited by the candidates or the public or used for partisan purposes. The League also researches issues important to our members and the health of our communities. If you are interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can make a difference, please visit our website, lwvmpls.org, and consider joining us as a member or volunteer. You can find more nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting at another League website, Vote 411. Information on voting and registering to vote can also be found on the Minnesota Secretary of State website, mnvotes.gov. And remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Early voting began September 22nd and continues through November 6th. Please vote. Your voice matters. Thank you. And let's give a round of applause to our candidates. Have a safe evening. Thank you very much for being here.
Nice to meet you. Yes, nice to meet you as well. You want to set up some time right now? Or?
Yeah.
Well, no, we're good, bro. Yeah. What do we feel like next week?
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
So much.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Yes.
Nice
Thanks
meeting
for
you.
hosting this. We
You're
really appreciate it. It's really great.
It's a wonderful public service, and
Yeah.
thank you both for
Yeah.
running and
No,
for
thank
serving
you.
your community. And I love what you guys both said about government being civil again and bringing everybody on board. And we need that, don't we? Thank you so much. It was nice meeting both of you.
Nice to meet you as well. Okay, so what about would it be free 11 on the 20th at Friday? If not,
I'm not there yet.
Okay. What day would you be free? How about that?